Good afternoon. My name's Emily Koenig. I'm Executive Director here at St. Louis County Children's Service Fund. And thank you so much for being here this afternoon and for spending this time with Silent War, Asian American Reckonings with Mental Health. This film, as I know you all felt as well, offers a really powerful and deeply personal stories. We recognize that it may have brought up a range of emotions and thoughts, and we are so grateful that you are sharing this time with us in this space with us today. In recognition of Mental Health Awareness Month and Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we created this opportunity to learn from those with lived experience in the film and to better understand how culture, stigma, and access shape mental health and behavioral health in our country. At CSF, we believe in building an equitable and responsive system, and that means listening closely to stories that are too often overlooked. In a moment, we'll hear from our panel discussion. This is a chance to process what we've seen, hear from individuals with expertise and lived experience, and connect the film's themes to work happening across St. Louis County. Panelists will introduce themselves, and we encourage you to participate in the Q&A if you feel comfortable. Before we begin, thank you for the work you do every day to support well-being of children, youth, and families. Your presence reinforces the importance of creating culturally responsive and accessible mental and behavioral health supports for all communities. So with that, I'll turn things over to Michelle Lee. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. Oh my gosh, thank you for letting me be here today. Wasn't that amazing or what?
Yes.
I'm just curious, and I don't really know how to phrase this question, but did anyone find themselves feeling surprised by what they watched? Some things? Okay, yeah, I see some head nods. All right, well, thank you. I'll introduce myself, and then I would love for the panelists to introduce themselves. My name is Michelle Lee. I am an adoptee. I am Korean born. I grew up in Missouri, and I am also very Asian. And it's so funny to also see that, because I didn't realize, that I went viral like in 2022, and I had a lot of trauma with that, like going viral. I remember also I wasn't taking care of myself. And sometimes I'm still not, but that's okay. I'm doing the best I can. But it is really interesting to see yourself, and to hear other people's perspectives. I saw Hemla in there, which was awesome. And so it's going to be a great discussion. But I do feel like a lot of people feel that third state kind of thing. And I definitely feel like being Asian, American, Korean, immigrant, adoptee, Missourian. There's so many different titles. And so I love that we're having this discussion about mental health. So thank you for letting me be here and be your moderator. But first of all, thank you for such a beautiful documentary. Would you mind introducing yourself, saying what you do for a living? And that's it. I think.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone here. I'm Changfu Chang. I'm a professor and a filmmaker. So these are the two main things I do to make a living, right? Filmmaking part is not my making living part. It's my passion, labor of love, right? And St. Louis is near and dear to me, as you can see in the documentary. And we have great voices from St. Louis and great stories. And also want to thank lots of people here. And today we have Ming, Himla, Michelle, part of the documentary. Me supported with organizations, supported the documentary quite a bit. And this has been my second trip for the screening. And really, I thank CSF and many other organizations, individuals, to make this wonderful screening possible at this beautiful space. And one thing I would like to say here is that it's really, for me, I truly feel privileged and honored to be part of you, because along the way, I learned a lot from members of the audience, from families, and from people like you in organizations. You are really doing very fine work here. I'm so honored to be part of you. Thank you.
Hi, yeah, my name is Rorke. Pronouns she, he, they, they're all good. I am a therapist that works at Monarch Immigrant Services. And I feel like it's been an honor working there because within how we do things, I get a chance to see people inside their schools or inside their homes, work with interpreters to try to understand people on their journey towards healing within their context. And I'm always, I'll probably talk about it later too, learning the language of mental health with the different people I talk to, but also learning their language and like what does healing and acceptance looks like for them. And yeah, that's me.
My name is Min Liu. Like Dr. Chang, I am also a professor and I teach at SIUE. My role here, though, I am a community advocate. I co-founded the Asian American Civic Scholars initiative quite a few years ago, and our work with mental health was the vision of amazing students, high school students. Between 2021 and 2025, our work was funded by CSF as a grassroots partner, which really provided much needed momentum, but also enabled us to get to know a lot of the community resources. So I'm here to represent my experience as a parent with teens, but also experience working with dozens of high school student leaders and advocates over the years.
And that's how I met Min too. That's how we met too. How did the film resonate with each of you in both professional and personal ways? I know you've seen it now multiple times, but how has it resonated with you and sat with you?
Well, I would say I've seen this film in different versions quite a few times. With the CSF's funding, we actually showed an earlier version of this. So it's good to say that CSF and our project actually helped support the documentary in its early development. I would say every time I think about myself as a parent. I think about all scary mistakes I may have made as a parent to my teens. I think about my own family's struggle with figuring out whether it's time for us to see a therapist or whether we should go see couples therapists or a family therapist, and whether it's time to try medication and the whole experience of how much to tell our broader network of friends and family, how much to tell my parents and my in-laws about their grandchildren possibly on medication for to help them coping with some things. That those struggle is real, and I can't say that because of my work I am above that. It's something that I still struggle with. So thank you for telling those stories in a very authentic way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think for me, both personally and professionally, how the movie affected me was just being able to see the faces of other like Asian people, and that people who are dealing with mental illness just look like other people. I think mental health, depression, anxiety, suicidality was like a really big boogeyman that you think like someone crazy will do, or like will have this like crazy look in their eye when I was growing up, and being able to humanize it through the movie is something I can take away both personally and normalizing it with my clients, because there is not often a word like the movie said of like there's no translation for like mental health or depression or anxiety or for suicide. It's just something, so something you shouldn't talk about. And another thing that I took away from it is that how we're telling ourselves we're walking the line between honoring our parents, not bringing shame, keeping face, and also being a good student or being a good, citizen. And we're not realizing we're not walking that line very well at all. We're falling over. We're falling on the other side of it. And hope and not stigmatizing that, because it's a struggle and you can't walk that line alone. So yeah, I think that's what I took from it, just the humanizing-ness of that journey. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, it's everything. And I personally, I feel like it's my own story too. And sometimes I watch my own documentary and I would, say to myself, I wish 20 years ago, when my son was a teenager, 10 years ago, my daughter was a teenager, I had to watch a movie like that. Our family experience would be different. And personally, I also can relate to various scenarios. And I joked one time, and I assume the lady who left a message to you, right, was like an angel. What do you mean? Why are we doing this documentary? Believe it or not, I mentioned that I was a white professor filed a complaint to HR. And my multiple things, she mentioned that basically she walked across my office, she couldn't stand the smell.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, university did not pick on that. I did not even mention to them, did you guys see this is so racist? So I'm also processing, experience information like that. Me actually mentioned a similar story too. Yeah. Her like lunch was thrown out of department refrigerator or stuff like that. But so that's very personal, right? And I also say professionally, and this is such the important work for me. I often joke about I can do nothing, useless talking all the time, but I do have a special expertise, I guess, doing a documentary. So this is the way I contribute to the community to be part of this move. Thank you.
Well, those stories are so important and it touches everyone, no matter what your background is, you can relate to how the human element of all of it. And I am wondering, how did you find people? What was your travel process? I saw India, I was like, where did you go? You went everywhere. How did you find people? Can you walk us through your process just a little bit?
Yeah. Thank you so much for the question here. And it's the work is 5 long years, traveling in filming in 12 states in the United States. And we also filmed in Canada, China twice, Canada once, and we hired a crew to film in India. The most difficult part for this documentary is to find participants, and we were privileged to be connected by the community leaders, organizations who help us to reach out to the families. And people always, were reluctant. But once we build our trust and knowing we are on the same page to help our community, I was really touched and surprised by all these participants. They came out, shared their stories. That even meant that sometimes they put themselves in very vulnerable situations, and sometimes they took a risk of re-traumatizing themselves. Yeah. So that's one of the things we hear from the audience, that really they could really hear these stories. Storytelling, right? I tell you an interesting story here, right? So in the movie we're filming in Canada in a park, Garbina and her mother. In the middle of the shoot, they stopped. Garbina flashed out his cell phone and showing something to his mom. I stopped recording. Now, what's going on here? Apparently, Garbina was showing a photo of a young lady to her mom. What's that? And Garbina told me, my mom was a little bit reluctant to participate. I told her today that now I'm dating a girl, but I don't share you, okay, unless you participate.
Bribery.
Thank you. Yeah, finally we become part of one family. So everybody thinks.
Can you talk about some of the work that you do, and especially in St. Louis? I think a lot of people want to know in terms of resources. We've got all those great resource tables too, but what is some of the work that you do?
I do documentaries. I teach documentaries at filmmaking at university. So I really interested in human interest stories from U.S., China, cross-cultural or Asian American context and perspective. In terms, I really want to thank, our St. Louis friends here for helping me understand mental health issues, and also to help me connect with amazing Michelle in the documentary. And what else I do here right now, I found this is the area that we needed to focus. It is not overdue for media products to shed light on our struggles, on our experiences. So the next project I want to do is one is that I want to expand on that, to do a documentary on the lived experience of Asian American LGBTQ plus community. Yeah, that's one. And the other is talk more about intergenerational trauma from immigrant perspective.
I would say we definitely look forward to supporting that. For our AACS mental health initiative, and I just want to do a shout out to my main partner, Hemla, over there. We have, so we are focused primarily on community kind of advocacy and education. So we've been, I would say our listening circle programs have been really effective. So what we do is we partner with community organizations, whether it's faith-based or cultural or language-based, in various communities, so that we bring, I would say, their kind of therapeutic or psychoeducational kind of group experience to directly dialogue with Asian American parents. And what we find really useful and helpful is to bring our youth advocates. You can show your PhD or you can show your fancy degrees, but I think for these parents, it's really effective for them to hear directly from our youth advocates, to share that, your kids may be getting all A's, they may be excelling in their sports and, extracurriculars, but that doesn't mean that their struggles are not real, or doesn't mean that they're not also experiencing depression and anxiety. So that's really helpful. And I would also say that we've been really, we've had great success with the mental health first aid training program. For that, we partnered with Prevent Ed, and I think we've trained more than 180 mental health first aiders among the Asian American community. Majority of them are actually youth. So I find that to be very helpful, because then they become advocates. I cannot tell you how many times I've actually gotten a text from our teens who are certified and they say to me, "Oh, Dr. Liu, I'm thinking about helping someone, but how do I talk to the parents? How do I bring the topic up?" And that's the whole point of that training, is to enable teens to connect someone that they're concerned for, and connect them to a trusted adult. So yeah, these are great work. Yeah, we're very proud of them, and we look forward to continuing those.
That's wonderful. Can you talk a little bit more about the first aiders and the prevent, and how does that work, and how do people get certified? Because these are
right
young adults. I mean, they're teenagers.
Right. So I think 10th grader and up, they can actually be certified to be mental health first aiders. So I would say it's probably a total of 6 hours of training, and the teens have to go through this in person. And I believe if we have any folks who work in schools, I know that several school districts actually are bringing that program to their school district. So we've heard from students who say they trained with fellow Asian American high school students, but then they've also gone through the training from the school district. So it's really helpful. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I want to share from a perspective of just working one-on-one with a lot of these folks, I feel like there's a lot of groundwork in terms of trying to find the resources that help each of the people I see. Like you pointed out in the documentary, there is not a lot of research on Asian mental health. I remember stumbling upon that statistic a year ago, 0.17% funding, even though we make up about 7% of the population. It's wild. I remember when I first stumbled upon an article helping Cambodian refugees slide into getting mental health, and how tokens and trinkets were so helpful because something physical felt real to them versus do your breathing exercises and visualize this and that and the other thing. And I was just really excited to see another way of using words, of using objects that I did not get taught in grad school. But there's just a lot of self-teaching, a lot of pursuing of the books and the research to treat this population, to be there for them. It's just not out there. And so I was really thankful for movies and documentaries like this. Another thing is being mindful about how I often work with a population, parents and children, how often I have to be mindful of sometimes parents are not able to be on that mental health journey with their kids. Because a lot of people I work with are refugees, have gone through war, are still surviving that war, and they just oftentimes don't have the room to be present for their family or their children. And so navigating again that thin line of how do I help them through this without shaming their current coping strategies. That is very cultural because they're oftentimes moved here. They probably wouldn't have moved here if they didn't need to, honestly, because they talk a lot about missing home and missing and having that piece missing. And then how do I share with them Western therapy in the best way, in the most culturally sensitive way possible, to navigate those traumas, and then helping them. I had a thread with this, but helping them navigate all that without bringing shame to them, without saying their way is the wrong way, basically. Because I feel like it comes off a lot that way, and there's not a lot of research that helps me give a different message, I feel like. So I feel like a lot of resources I have to find is, a lot of, you have to have a lot of gumption to find those things to be a therapist for this population.
And Rorke, can you expand on that just a little bit? I'm really fascinated with that because we don't want to give, we don't want to shame someone, but you're right. I mean, you still talk to people who have left maybe a country to come here, and it is still a process and a journey and trauma. So how do you have one thing that you can share about how you might help someone navigate that?
Yeah. I'll start with the children that are sometimes born here or have moved here and have become somewhat Americanized. Normalizing goes such a long way. I feel I feel very lucky in a way to draw upon my own experiences. Oh, your mom said that. Let me tell you what my mom said. Yeah. Oh man. And I remember a client telling me is it crazy? If I'm frustrated with my mom who expects all these things from me. I love her. Why am I so mad at her? No, trust me, you can both feel those things, mad and love. Trust me, you're not crazy. But there's this heavy feeling that I think the younger generation feel. We always feel, a lot of us feel indebted to our parents. We feel we can never give back to someone who's sacrificed so much. And so I feel some of us as children try to overcorrect and try not to shame or try to do best that good in school or not have a mental illness somehow. And just telling them to balance, you can both love your family and not and still find a way to quote unquote pay them back in the way you can while maintaining yourself, because they have to navigate both that expectation and the Americaniness that is inevitable if you live in this soup. And so with parents, and I can't use my own experience, but like telling them like, oh yeah, my mom also was annoyed when I did that growing up, when I didn't understand like her cultural values. And being with them with like, yeah, it is scary when you don't recognize your kids anymore in the way that like they're just not as culturally sensitive or as, you know, Vietnamese or as Pakistani or as much as the parents were, and just letting them and just kind of guiding them through the process of how, you know, accepting that journey of acculturating to a new place happens, and pointing out when that happens to them too, because like I'm guessing some things about you have changed since you've lived here, and that's always a fun conversation because there's some things that have gotten easier, like, oh yeah, I don't have to like wake up and like boil water, or I can like walk around with like female independence is a bigger thing here, so like get to walk around and like have a bigger opinion about stuff, which is also a more American thing to do for women in many cultures. So kind of showing them showing them the reframing a lot of it so that their journey looks cohesive, and being something different can still be them. Yeah.
And also, if I can, maybe you can have some thoughts on this too. I told you I was adopted. Bless you. Told you I was adopted. But I do have a relationship with my Korean family, and my Korean parents say you have no idea how poor we were because they were born around the time of the Korean War, you know, and so you really sometimes have very different experiences, you know, just in one generation.
Mm-hmm.
So I can only imagine the conversations that you're having.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or across the board. Sorry to say anyone.
About that, I would say, you know, I don't think my kids understand this, but my father, when he was their age as a teenager, he didn't have anything. He said that one of his main jobs was to sharpen the knives that the families used for cooking, but also for the agriculture. And he said that he would imagine one day having a mechanism where the water would drip on the thing nonstop, so he didn't have to stop, put water on it and sharpen, and then put water. And I realized that he was describing water that we see every day. So yeah, that's the kind of, I mean, a lot of immigrant. So, you know, sometimes I understand why it's hard for me to explain to my parents what my kids are going through. And because anyway, but I wanted to comment on what you were saying a little bit. I'm so grateful for what you were describing there, because whenever I interact with a lot of parents who are in my shoes, and, you know, maybe they're here as a researcher or, you know, professional careers, but it doesn't matter how many degrees they have in their title. If they didn't grow up in this country, they probably don't have a very good idea of what mental health, you know, how it's approached here. And I hear so often they have this fear about possibly going to see a therapist with their kid because they have this idea that the therapist will, in that office, parents are always going to be blamed. That is always going to be finding something that parents have to fix. So I appreciate what you were describing here, so that we can say, okay, if we find the right therapist or find the right clinician who's a good fit for your family, then it can be a healing experience for everyone. So it doesn't feel like that, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that a challenge though too? Because I remember when I think, was it when we first met in 2022, you were doing student panels. And one thing that Dr. Minlu did, she has, you know, her group of students, and they were saying how they put out a book list for May for the Heritage Month, and they sent it to about a dozen schools in St. Louis. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the teachers did not respond. And so these students felt so dejected, and they said, I don't feel seen in the place where I really want to be seen, my school. Then I go out to the community and people are calling me bad eaters or telling me to go back to my country. And what I thought was so incredible was that they just wanted books.
Yeah.
You know, they just wanted books so that they could see themselves in their libraries. And what happened to me that was so impactful was that you said after that panel, we did a virtual panel because it was still during the pandemic, that these students were talking about suicide ideation because it was so heavy. And they had the challenge of telling their parents, first of all, that they wanted to seek mental health help. And then also they couldn't find therapists that had shared experiences, similar experiences. So I'm wondering if you could share challenges that you face. We kind of mentioned some of them, but some of the challenges that you face trying to have mental health awareness or support in the community or corporate funding or county fund, whatever it is, what are some of the challenges that you face?
I would say you were talking about the soup metaphor. I mean, I think St. Louis is not the easiest soup to be an Asian American youth. I would say, we have, a lot of great organizations, some of them represented here. And over the years, we've sought out each other. Michelle, for instance, started the Maybook Project, which is such a wonderful thing.
You started that.
Well,
Yeah.
and we continue to support that. And, and believe it's oftentimes for these young people, being able to do something to asking for books. I think that can be already a very uplifting experience. So talking about resources, I cannot tell you how many times I've texted Pamela, and say, hey, this is the family, this is the situation, what do I do? Who would be a good therapist? And I'll tell you a wonderful experience. I've put my name out so many times that people now know that I'm the woman who talks about mental health all the time. My kids don't love that idea, but I'm like, it's okay. I tell people that I'm seeing a couples therapist too. So most recent, I want to share with you this experience. This was someone who I respect as a community leader. And I know that their child is a trans young person. And I've known this for quite a few years. And finally, I think this young person asked their mom that they needed to see a therapist. And I think with Hemla's help, we were able to find someone who has that, Asian community sensitivity, but we know to be a really trusted and sensible therapist who specializes with LGBTQ youth. And the last time I checked, I think the experience went really well and parents were not pushing back. So I have hope. So I think there are definitely challenges because what I think our work needs to happen is to make sure that we don't get to some of these stories. But we also know the first time that a high school student said, Dr. Liu, we should do some work with mental health. They shared the story about losing a high school student to untreated mental health challenge. And this was, I think maybe some of you know this story. This was someone who, by all standard to our community, is top performing, amazing, heading towards Harvard. I think it was the summer before freshman year in Harvard, they ended their life somewhere in Chesterfield. And I think that kind of story continues to stay on the minds of families. I don't love bringing it up. I don't think we should always use those narratives to scare people, but it stays on our mind. I think what we're hoping to do is to make sure that we connect families. I started talking about this a few years ago so that one day this family could ask for help. And they did. So that's really, yeah.
Yeah. To talk about the struggles, I think that one of the biggest things for me is I like to remember, it's hard not to remember how, kind of going back to the documentary and also my personal experience, I think there's a deep shame that a lot of Asian and Asian Americans carry with them. And I think part of it is from trying to pay things back to your parents or trying to not lose face. But also, I think there's a systematic shame that gets put on Asians that, of course, affect their mental health, where I think systematically we don't get a lot of justice. And I think while not being very conscious of it, a lot of Asian and Asian Americans experience it. It's like when the tragedy in Atlanta, Georgia occurred and those Asian women were killed, were murdered. But I believe it was the governor who said that the deaths were not racially motivated, went to every Asian person that was totally racially motivated. So our deaths are lesser than. or during COVID when people were being attacked. It was hard to get like clear coverage on that, in my perspective, that drew attention to this population of people that have long been ignored. Well, it goes up and down in terms of how we're ignored and how we're seen in history. It's complicated. It's a whole other soapbox. But and then like really a more recent example is like The Devil Wears Prada 2 came out recently. I don't know if y'all have seen that, but there was a character, an Asian Chinese character, whose name spelled first name G-I-N-G, Jing, last name Chang, which sounds a lot like Ching Chong, which was that a big thing? No, not really. But it was a thing. And so like when I'm faced with like these little things that happen every day, these injustices are just ignored, it can make you feel like you don't deserve help. You just kind of absorb that stuff. And I feel like I worry a lot of my clients absorb those things too. And assimilation is also really big in the community because they just want to make it and get by because they feel so different already. And so I worry that on top of everything, absorbing the shame of like, doesn't like who I am and what I feel and the injustice I feel just doesn't matter. And of course that affecting their self-worth. And so when that happens, I find that the most helpful thing to do is giving a word to their experience. Like it feels weird to say out loud, but when I say to a kid, no, that's racist. And they're like, yeah, that was racist. That's like a big thing for them because they don't see like an Asian person telling them they've experienced racism. And I will say, well, you know, we just have to sit with that. And we're just like, that happens. And sometimes that's the most therapeutic thing I can do is like that happens. And next time it happens, we can talk about that too. And yeah, sometimes that's the positive. Just letting them know, like in the documentary you said, that they're not alone. Just even just being able to tell them that they experienced something really shitty. But I saw it and that they weren't crazy. Yeah.
To be seen, to be heard, to be believed.
Yeah, believed.
That's really important. And I do think you see that a lot in terms of storytelling. And that's kind of where I can't do a documentary, but I do like, I'm on the news every day. And I feel like we talk about all the time, who is telling the stories and what is the experience? I would say that we do less on immigration because we don't have very many immigrants in newsrooms in the city, right? Who have like a tie to like what we could really talk about when we're talking about ICE in communities or when we're talking about citizenship, all these things. Or when we talk about, it's May, it's Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And how many stories do you see being amplified at this time? And I do remember saying, hey, what are we doing for May? And someone at my work, who doesn't work there anymore, said, I don't know, we're so busy with June. And I said, it's February. I said, but can't we? Yes, and can't we do all of it? So I guess we're not doing anything for May. Okay, cool. And then it puts the burden on you, right? It puts the burden on the people who are really deeply tied to or personally tied to that work to make sure that those stories are being told. So that all goes into the narrative and the injustice of being believed or being seen. I am curious too, especially when you made the documentary, did you feel like there was something that I haven't formulated this question, but if there was a pie chart, right, and you could look at kind of the biggest challenges in terms of people getting mental health resources or asking for help, what is it tied mostly to immigration? Is it tied to belonging? Is it tied to not having the right resources available? Is it tied to funding? What did you have something that was like, oh, this is clearly a thread that binds us all?
Yeah. Just thank you for this really, really good question. I have thought about that for sure. So all these things on the pie on the chart, right, are very important. Then, as you know, you delve into that. In the one time, I was thinking, what is mental health? So what are really things? Okay. What are like the things that on the top? So I would say that it depends on the perspectives of the, let's say, professionals here, right? The resources, right? community structure could be awfully important. But for me, the one time I asked, my daughter and her, like friends in colleges. And I say, what is the biggest thing about mental health? And they say that unequivocally, it's a sense of belonging, identity. So then I really think that is the kind of root that other, this is like the center of this pie, and it can relate or radiate to the other areas. But of course, in a particular person's perspective, experience, it can be something else in periphery. Let's say resources, right? And say like the justice in the workplace, and so forth.
Do you want to talk maybe also more in depth about sense of belonging? Because there is a narrative, in the Asian American community, when we're talking about being a perpetual foreigner or other things, there's also, something that we didn't address in your documentary, I don't think, what is that there are a lot of kids now who are multiracial, multi-ethnic, multicultural too. And so there is this place of where do I belong as well. But can you talk about your experience with dealing with sense of belonging? What are the biggest hangups for folks?
Yeah, thanks. It so happens another big, like the question or a framework is the question is, where are you from, right? So the Asian Americans are treated because, people cannot get over our skin because they, always have this sense of, like the treating us as a perpetual foreigner, sojourner, right? And interestingly, that's another issue I'm addressing in a documentary I'm doing, very tied to a story on this trip. Several days ago, I was in Ohio to do a follow-up story with my friend, the veteran, the mayor of Westchester, Lee Wang. Some of you may have heard this story during the pandemic. This veteran, a 20-year the mayor, an Asian American in a population of 97% whites, right? The Westchester's a huge, sizable town, a mayor, right, of the town. During the town hall, he talked about how people are, accusing him not American enough, and he, flipped his shirt, showed the scar from his military service, asking, "Is this patriotic enough?" Now, basically, we're talking about this is something we're dealing with, tied with this sense of belonging. Another interesting, the story quickly, right? Not wasting time. So one of the things I'm trying to do a skip, like storytelling, right? What I do is that I ask my students, right, to go to the parking lot of Walmart, Kmart, or mall, right, to ask the question of a typical white person. Basically, the question was like, "Hey, John, what's your name, John? Hey, John, where are you from?" "I'm from St. Louis." No. Where are you really from? And you will see the surprise. Where do your grandparents come from? From Germany. What do you ask? Are you crazy? And then to finish with this conversation, your English is pretty good.
Great.
And then we talk about it. This is the common questions every one of us, right, has been asked time and again throughout our life. Thank you.
Do you want to add to that, or I see you looking?
Yeah.
No, sorry, Min.
Okay.
I was looking at you, making
Right. Yeah. No, I've gotten that question too. I see it in the students too, and I think those of you, we're all from St. Louis, so we know that in some of our districts, Ladue, Clayton, the Parkways, those schools are 13, maybe as high as 18% Asian American in their high schools. And I've often wondered if that makes a difference when you attend a school where you, a young person, does it make a difference? It does, yes. Right. Yeah, but then, well, I mean, yeah. So, sorry. Yeah, no. I have a kid. I have kids in that school district too. So sense of belonging, and I think about that a lot for our high school students that I get to work with. What gives them a sense of belonging when they get to the high school age, to be able to do something, to be able to serve the community, to be able to contribute in a way that they see as meaningful. I think that's oftentimes the most helpful way to give them a sense of belonging. I wondered what gives me a sense of belonging. I mean, I became a naturalized citizen a few years ago. Interestingly, was motivated by this fear that things were going to get really bad for immigrants. And I said, okay, I'm going to just, make it legal. And I don't think that made a huge difference in that sense of belonging. I would say sense of belonging, for instance, sometimes it comes with a sense of, I guess, what makes it feel legitimate, real for you. Slightly different, but I think having our work be funded by CSF, which is a branch of the St. Louis County Department government, gives our conversation with community partner organizations a sense of legitimacy and belonging. To be able to say, hey, there is this branch of county that was funded by tax dollars that we possibly contributed to, that cares enough about the mental health of our community, about our high school students or youth, that they want to fund our work. That actually gave me a sense of belonging. Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
What were some of the bright spots of the documentary for you? Because I really enjoyed Sandy's story and got verklempt at the end, because that caught me by surprise. That was really beautiful. But I'm wondering, what were some of the bright spots for you all?
Really, seeing the story, as you say, is really, like the inspiring, right? With Michelle Lee, a bright spot. I would say really like all the three major families, they have great spots. So like the Garbina situation, you see the transformation, the sense of the closure and moving forward. In his story, family story, the sense of engaging the community to advance the mental health out of their personal tragedy. So these are really great bright spots for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, what I really enjoyed was the parents at the end. I cried. I had to. That was just so touching to see that journey that they were able to have. But also, I found it really cathartic to see the individuals that had bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. I cannot emphasize enough how I would have really appreciated seeing that when I was in middle school or high school. I just didn't have like a visual picture of Asian and like struggling mentally or having a mental disorder. I just didn't compute in my head. It still doesn't. It's something I have to really still unlearn. And just so getting that representation, even though those aren't my personal struggles, it made me feel like I belonged in an interesting way, because it's like, oh, we can have those too, as weird as that sounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like we can, because I hear about that a lot in like the white community. And luckily there's more research in the Black community about these things. Not great, but it's getting there. But for sure, I do not hear that a lot happening in the Asian community. Again, low research, low priority, even though we have the highest, the leading number cause of death is for young people is suicide, which is unlike any other ethnic group. Not very much research into that one. So just being able to see that was just, felt really cathartic.
I would say I love it when the parents are using Google Translate to communicate with their child and making sure that they told their daughter, I love you. It kind of reminds me of when I first started sending my son to a preschool or like a very early childhood education, and I would actually put a sticky note on my car wheel. Hug Max and tell him I love you, because that's not in my, natural instinct. I believe the first time that my parents told me I love you was when I was 25 and leaving for America in the airport. And did I ever question that? I know they love me, but so it was an experience that I had to teach. Like, I had to remind myself to hug my son in front of his teachers so that they wouldn't question. So I kind of connected to that. Now it feels natural. Now I actually do tell them I love you, and they're like, yeah, right. But I loved all the clinicians and mental health experts that you interviewed. The advocates. Elaine Peng is someone that I really respect, and I like it because it reminds me of people that I know in our community. In St. Louis, I'm very happy to see, for instance, organizations like Monarch, who are bringing amazing, very young, clinicians who, mirror the community that you're serving, which I love and gives me a sense of hope as well. And, we have agencies like CSF putting a spotlight on this issue. But we also have, like, for instance, I see my friend from WashU's Asian Studies program here, and they're paying attention to mental health conversations as well. So it's all about knowing who are, the movers and shakers in the ecosystem, because we do have a great ecosystem that is ready to be mobilized. So
Thank you for that. And then your son, Max, he's graduating this week, right?
yeah, and he's going to WashU.
Does he give hugs?
Yeah, so I'm excited. He says, "Mom, you've grown a lot." He would actually say that I haven't Americanized too much, which I think is an interesting observation and probably accurate.
A final question before we take audience questions. What is something that you could have more support on, or whether it's a project or just your chance to say to people, hey, I could use help on this?
I am very good at asking people to do work for free. If I say this is for high school students or youth, many of you, I see some of you who've done basically free work or maybe donated. I would love to be able to be in a place where I can, So I want to learn how to write grants. I want to be better at it. I want to be able to sustain our work. So find partners, yes.
I think, I don't know, this is a personal wish of mine. I because of how funding works and my very peon understanding of it, I often don't get to see, I often try to see people within a year of service. Like a year, we offer free therapy for up to a year-ish. It's not like a hard deadline or anything, but it is something I wish I could have someone with me longer, because we're trying to unwork decades. Sometimes I have, like, my oldest client, I think, is 70 and has been living with a particular, with post-traumatic stress for 70 years, because she was born in a refugee camp. But I get a year with her, and I wish that I could see her for more, because people have high needs. I know I luckily had insurance and money, so I got to see my own personal therapist for like 5 years, and I did not live through a war. Not yet, maybe, I don't know. So that is something I would love from the powers that be. Anyway, yes.
Yeah. There's another St. Louis story here in answering your question, right? During the pandemic, there was a powerful documentary on mental health by St. Louis filmmakers. It was called Wake Up. So it was screened at various places. The Asian American communities were screening that. They watched that, they came to me. They said, look, this is a powerful, wonderful documentary, but there was not an Asian face. Could you do something? That's the reason I jumped on that. I said, look, you guys teach me. I don't know much about mental health, but I'm willing to do. So as I'm here, finally, with help from me and St. Louis, friends here, we created the first major Asian American mental health documentary here. And me and Hamila were talking just now. what's your next project? Let's finish that, like the first documentary on Asian American LGBTQ plus community story. So they are promising they are going to help us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right, so we would love to spend about 10 minutes answering some of your questions. And we just, again, appreciate all of your time. But go ahead. If you want me to come up, I can come up with the microphone, or if you want to check. Oh, go ahead. Oh, God.
Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for the moderator. My name is Marquita Lay Hamel. I'm from CHADS, Communities Healing Adolescent Depression and Suicide. So I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for being here. Right now, we're in a community, a 24-1 community in Lucas Crossing Middle School and the high school, and we're connecting Colleen from over at CHADS. She's their role, I believe. I actually have role position right now as a project specialist, and she's left. But I just want to say, right now, CHADS is also in the community, in the school district that you're talking about, and we're doing, of course, adolescent psychoeducation, coaching, and also we're doing psychotherapy for free. So I just want to, all the panelists, please, before you leave here, we also are partners of St. Louis County Children's Service Fund. So there's a partnership there already that you guys can reach out to us, and maybe we can partner in the future about how to address it. I'm also from University City, graduate of SIUE, me and my cousin. And so therefore, okay, psychology department. And so therefore, we're grassroots. So, if you could connect with us, we would like, to also connect with you. Ro know how to get in contact with everyone. And you also, the producer, we have a lot of kiddos, okay, that are, in University City and in Normandy who would like to talk about LGBTQIA, plus things and how they actually are marginalized as well. So this story can continue forever. I just want to be the person to actually invite you all in as well to connect with CHADS as well, because we are communities healing adolescent depression and suicide. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry, I had a question.
Amazing.
Hi, my name's Alexia. One of the things in the documentary was talking about comparison between children and like other relatives or people in their lives. And I was thinking about how one of the biggest factors for young people is social media impact, and like a lot of that is traced back to like comparison of youth to other people, to anyone in the world. And I'm just curious like what your thoughts are about like the intersection of those two things.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about comparison, let me think a little bit more about the social media connection. But I was thinking about, was it Cindy at the end who is really thriving, but she was doing bartending? Is that Cindy?
Yes.
Yeah. And I was thinking about how happy she was, but the fact that she's bartending, she has her tattoos and her piercings, and if we're talking about this stereotypical kind of Asian immigrant family, those are not on the top of parents' wish list in terms of what they, So that's why I love that you ended with that. So it comes down to how do we define success. And another thing that there's a moment where the parents are like talking about how much they had to sacrifice to bring them to America. That's a very common theme for a lot of immigrant families. And the idea is that we sacrifice so that you can be better, and that being better actually carries so much expectation and stress. So when we do listening circles, that's one of the things that we definitely tackle is how do we renegotiate the community norms in terms of what success looks like for a young person. What a fulfilling life looks like for a young person. So I would say that's kind of the social comparison that we sometimes try to unpack a little bit for parents.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that question. I think, thanks for the question. And I think that comparing ourselves is a very normal thing for everyone to do. And I think how parents compare their children to other people's kids or their neighbors' kids, and how children compare themselves to their peers, whether or not in the classroom or in social media. So in my very put together answer now, I think different purposes. I think when parents compare, I think it's a way of saying I love you, because if you bother to have expectations of somebody, it means that you do expect them to be able to do a thing. If you didn't, you wouldn't say anything. But if a parent says, so and so did this, they can play piano or got an A or read a newspaper, they're communicating to the children, in my perspective, I know you can do this if you apply yourself. I know that you are amazing and can be amazing if you apply yourself. But with usually teens, adolescents that compare themselves to their peers or on social media, one very age-appropriate thing to do, because when you compare, you are learning how to fit in. You are learning how to belong. And so in a way, it's a very productive thing to do. With how social media goes and what rabbit holes we go down on and the insular circles we can end up on, it can get really nasty. And so I think that it, like most things, it's a tool. But with how broad it can get, it's often I think that's why it's lumped into, we compare ourselves. It's nasty and bad for mental health. But we have to understand that's a very normal, age-appropriate behavior for teens to have as well.
Let me chime in just a little bit here. If I would, select a top 3 topics, things that cause the Asian parents trouble. One, they don't say I love you. 2, they compare. 3rd is they talk about how much they sacrifice for the kids. When they sacrifice the kids don't get it. You are too transactional. That is not love. Talk about a compare. You take my individuality away. You make me live like someone else, right? All these things. But what I often say is that sometimes, same love, different expressions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Carolina with Hope Ignite St. Louis, and I had a question you kind of touched on, but the documentary really highlighted if you're working with a young person and you really want to see impact, you're also going to be working with their environment, their family. That specific piece was really relevant in the documentary. So my question is, we work with young people, and wondering what resources or suggestions you have working with parents. As a therapist at the agency, I've tried to host candid conversations, and let's talk about mental health 101, consequences, you name it. We've tried it, and I think the after school hours are really difficult. But I think it's so important if you're treating a child to also work with the environment they go back to. And I have struggled for a couple years, of course, being creative, trying this and that, and back to school nights. But I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions. Maybe it is that one-on-one conversation you were sharing, but I just love to ask because it's such an important piece of the treatment and the healing.
Yes, Bruce. You want
I'll jump. I'm just killing time right now as I think about your question. Yeah, that's a hard one. Gosh, I wish I had a better answer. Maybe I will as I start talking. But I think, I see people at home. Luckily, with my population, the mom often doesn't work. And so I can at least reach her. But it's an upward fight. I feel you in what you were saying. This system in how we have to provide for ourselves does not leave a lot of time, does not leave those parents much time at all to make room to see you, to see a therapist, to see any other organization. And I know I've called parents at 7:00 at night just to I know this is when they're free. Let me get a quick conversation in. I think we do our best. I don't know. I feel that's the best answer I have right now.
So I would, I'll share a little bit. It's about going back to the the back home that they go back to, but also the community spaces that they feel most comfortable with, where they gather or where they, send their kids to do cultural activities or learn the language. So I mentioned earlier that we do listening circles with parents, and we make a point about partnering with organizations, whether it's a language school or a mosque or a temple. And we've done them all, and those became our very trusted partnering organizations. And they're great. I mean, you need to find the right people. And so far, Hemline, we've mostly been able to find women of our age. I think, that maybe more, they might be a little bit. So whenever we see dads in the listening circles, we're so thrilled. We almost like take very extra care of them so they get the message too. But the idea is, Ming knows this about this wish list. I keep thinking that if I can convince those community spaces to put up a 988 poster, then maybe I will have changed enough minds. And so far, we haven't been able to accomplish that. So I hear that you're giving us some 988 posters in some Asian languages. I'll take it personally and show you a picture when I get it on one of the buildings. So, but it's a bigger, like, it's about changing those community conversations. So it's okay to talk about mental health or suicide support in this Chinese language school or in this Buddhist temple or in this Sikh organization. So I think that's one thing that we're trying really hard to do. Yeah.
Thoughts that come to me while I was thinking. I think also another thing that I think therapy for me has to become very broad in terms of what services I can offer these parents to get them in, to make them feel like they're gaining something out of it. Because parental stress, of course, affects the whole household, affects the mental health of the child. And there's some things that I don't have quick answers for like financial stress. However, there are like tools I can teach them that can still be therapeutic because it can increase feelings of agency in their household, like a translation app. I know I've had really wonderful sessions teaching someone how to use a translation app and like, oh, I can now read my bills. Oh, I don't have to like find my neighbor to like read this thing for me. Or like other material things like helping them understand how utilities work or how to talk to their landlord, and all of these things that can provide them a sense of independence, that when they have just a little bit less of this load on them, that the child also can feel that as well, because they don't have to fill that spot in for their parent, especially if they speak English and were born here. And so that, yeah, in a way, offering those more wrappy-roundy services that target all the little ways to provide some stress relief, that overall still affect the family. I don't know if I answered your question, but I hope I did. Yeah.
All right, we thank you so much. I really want to be mindful of your time because you spent such a big portion of your afternoon with us. We want to thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your patience, for your grace, for your wisdom, and hopefully for your help too. So thank you so much. Also, big thank you to our panelists, Min Lu, Chhouk, and Dr. Changfu Chang. Thank you so much. Thank you to the St. Louis County Children's Service Fund for putting this all together, especially me, Emily, the whole team. Thank you. Before you head out, just a quick reminder, there are resource tables out there. You can get some swag from everyone too. There's lots of pens, I see. Very excited. Very Asian Foundation, Monarch Immigrant Services, Asian American Civic Scholars, NAMI, which was also mentioned in the film, as well as 988 and CSF. So thank you again. Also, CSF will be demoing their Find a Service tool, which connects users with their 100 plus funded partners, and 988 will have translated materials available as well. So, and a big thing, see the QR code there? If you can, you know how important surveys are. So if you can please take this post-event survey, the QR code right there is where you will find it. Please fill out the survey. Again, thank you so much for being here today, and drive home safely. Thank you.